Praise the Lord, saints. I would have probably have done this a bit earlier, but uh, Sister Heyman had a medical situation. Take her to the ER. She's okay. We're back, as you can see, and she's went to sleep. I gave her medicine, and she really didn't want to eat much, and that's okay. She's been eating a good deal before, so I'm not too worried about that. I was going to talk about the third instance of U.S. lives or somebody's lives lost in a violent manner within the last day or two. I talked about the massacre of Australian Jews on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. And I spoke a little bit about the shooting at Brown University. This one essentially is a bit puzzling, and I'll tell you why as I go through it. But this has not really been in a lot of news stories. It's been kind of buried. And I was curious as to why it was buried, because you had 2 U.S. servicemen and an interpreter being killed by what they say was an ISIS sniper or ISIS gunman in Syria. Now, one can charge us up to, this is just the eventual casualties of war or combat or reconnaissance missions or whatever could happen. These are the dangers that you face, and that's true. You sign up to serve the Army or Navy, Air Force, Marines. You also sign up for, unfortunately, the unpleasant aspects that you may never get home again. And in this case, 3 people would never come home again alive. 2 servicemen and one civilian interpreter. The reason why this is so interesting, because of 2 things. 2 things that kind of bother me a little bit. One is that these were not regular Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine personnel that was involved in this. These were part of the National Guard, which is usually the last people that are sent. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe National Guard you can send all over in battle-tested areas, but I would have thought that they would have put in such an area a full-fledged Army person or Marine person, just because of the danger of the area. In Syria, even though they have a new prime minister, Assad fled the country, went to Russia, and I'm sure is living out the rest of his days with all the riches he's pilfered from the people, and he's living in Russia. But that does not mean that all of Syria is civilized or all of Syria is kept under law. There are certain areas that many believe are still held by ISIS, which is committed to the destruction of any and all Western forces and anyone who actually deviates from their form of Islam. Now, I spoke to a friend earlier about types of Islam, and we have to make sure that we understand this. Not every Islamic person is going to call jihad on us. Not every Islamic person is going to essentially try to erase our government. It's like every person that's called a Christian does not actually follow Christian values. There are some that essentially, are rather lawless. Like, for instance, don't you know that many KKK members consider themselves Christians? Yes, the same ones that would murder and lynch and do all those other types of things to people they feel are beneath them. They consider themselves Christians. But so I'm just letting you know about essentially when you look at a particular faith or belief, especially one that's as big as Islam or Christianity, there are many different sects and many different beliefs and many different denominations that some of them kind of run counter to each other. So you have to understand what you're dealing with. ISIS was one of the more extreme ones, so to speak. But that was one thing that got me, was the fact that it was not Army or Marines that was attacked. It was National Guardsmen who would be in a National Guard situation. National Guard. You guard the nation. You're not part of the Army, which goes forth into all areas of the world, or the Marines. And that's my thinking. I may be wrong, but that's just my thought. When I saw this, I said, oh, that's quite interesting. As well as very tragic. Because I know they didn't sign up to go to Syria, and they didn't sign up to get shot at in Syria. But I guess that once you join the armed services in any form, I guess you have to be ready now. So, okay, all right. But another thing struck me as odd when I began to read about this. Now, understanding, of course, we're going to try to take revenge for this action. And, of course, our president said that those that are in ISIS better be careful because they're going to be in for a long time, as well as our Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War. So, and of course, I know how, these are emotions, they run high. These are our men, these are our people that are being killed. And we don't want this to happen. And essentially, I don't care where they are, you don't want your young people to be slaughtered by anyone. Definitely ISIS, because a long time we thought that ISIS was pretty much defunct. But letting you know that ISIS still is around. Now, understand this too. Another thing that kind of struck me as odd. Usually, if you're killing the infidels, as ISIS would try to do, ISIS would claim it. It's another strike in the war against the infidels. Strangely enough, ISIS did not claim this one. That makes you feel kind of strange. That they said it was an ISIS gunman. Of course, the ISIS gunman was then made unalive by the rest of the people that were there. But usually when ISIS would normally be tripping over their feet trying to claim responsibility for causing the death of one of the infidels, they didn't do it this time. So that's interesting. Number 2. So now the third one, which I thought was number 2, but now we see it's 3 of them, is that Syrian intelligence tried to warn the U.S. of possible dangers in the area, specifically ISIS. And there was no rebuke that was given that disputed that claim by Syrian intelligence. And you may want to believe Syrian intelligence because they would stick out much less than U.S. intelligence, which is why people are not talking to the U.S. We're talking to the Syrians. And the Syrians was very gracious enough to share the information they had received regarding dangers of ISIS or other like organizations in that particular region. But it was said that the U.S. did not take that intelligence information or warnings into account. Now you really got to be puzzled that, wait a minute, you are traveling in a place where you don't quite know everything of what's going on. That's where intelligence comes in. So the Syrians who are playing host to you are giving you intelligence on that particular region and what dangers people might face in that region. Now, let me relate this to you. Of course, many of you know I talk as Elder Adrian Heyman and not just about secular things. One of the reasons why the saint of God is inevitably so successful in heading off the attacks of Satan and his helpers is because God does his own intelligence and he funnels it to us. Beware of this. Watch out for that. Watch out for that. Look closely. Don't think this is just you just wandering in here. Think about it now. As Jesus said, we should be as harmless as doves, but as wise as serpents. We should know what's going on. We should know the lay of the land. We should know the type of attack our enemy is going to give us. And God gives us that information. Now, the fact that we don't listen to him is not his fault. He gives us the information. We just have to make sure that it's correct. And once we do, Satan's advances don't faze us, and we're not defeated. But take these three things into account. Number one, these are not regular Army or Marines that are in the area. Number two, they did not listen to the intelligence that told them of the danger that was around there. And then what was number three? See, I'm getting old. Number three is that if you're in the area, you have to be equipped to fight in the area. You cannot be like Goldilocks wandering around the forest, and then happens upon the wolf. You have to know the wolves are there, and they're there to get you and to claw you and to, as I said before, unalive you, as the saying goes now. But we didn't want to go and destroy all the ISIS people, and okay, I understand why. They've been against the U.S. for all this time. And that essentially, but I would dare hope that these forces would not try to attack all of Islam, and how we wouldn't try to attack all of Islam. Not because Islam is friendly with us, but because as Christians, we don't just blindly attack people. We have to understand what's going on. And then of course we don't fight fire with fire. For our warfare is not carnal, but it's spiritual. But in this case, you had the wrong people there in a territory where they are not used to going unless, again, they're backing up the army. Sometimes National Guard does go to these particular areas, but they're usually backing up the army, backing up the Marines, backing up whoever's in the armed services. They're not the ones that are doing reconnaissance and they're going around unless they thought nothing was going to happen to them and then something did. Which you may say, yes, that's the fault of the ISIS gunman who was later killed. But at the same time, why were they put in that type of danger? This is something that you can ask your general. You can ask our Secretary of War. You can even ask our president. And not that they're necessarily wrong, but just give us some information, especially if you can refute what the Syrian intelligence said, that we did not listen or take into account what the intelligence said. If that's the case, that's our fault. It's our fault for not listening and not paying attention. And the fault then of those poor young men who died, including the civilian interpreter, then belongs to those who have them over there. Now, I could be wrong, could be very wrong. Just like we were wrong about the person who supposedly shot a building over in Brown University. Because if you haven't heard by this time, they released the person. They didn't have enough evidence on this person. Does not mean the person didn't do it, but it does mean that they have to do some more investigation to see that it's actually this person. If not, it may be somebody else. So all of our thinking and so on has to change of who would actually would have done that. But again, thinking more closely about what happened in Syria is that, of course, ISIS was the one who took advantage of it, but did we have a part to play by being negligent and arrogant at the same time? Because if so, then someone's going to have to answer, really, for those people who would only come home now in boxes. And that is a tragedy. May God bless you. May He keep you. May He take care of you. And remember, listen to God's reconnaissance. He knows what He's saying. And if you know His reconnaissance and intelligence gathering, you know how to deal with the enemy in your life. Remember that. God bless you. Take care in Jesus' name.